Hey everyone, welcome back. It's pretty wild to think about how much AI has changed, especially when we talk about understanding something as complex as human emotions.
Mhm.
Imagine an AI that doesn't just see you smile, but actually gets all the messy thoughts and feelings behind it. And that's what we're going to really dive into today. How AI is starting to understand our emotions more how we do. We're looking at some really new research. It focuses on how well those big, powerful AI systems like GPT-4 and Claude can actually handle tasks that require them to actually grasp human emotions. And to help us break all of this down, we have our AI expert here, who I think is amazing because they can explain even the most complicated research.
Well, it's not always a walk in the park, but I'm always up for the challenge. And this research is super fascinating because it tackles affective cognition. Basically, it's about AI understanding emotions the way humans do.
Okay, that's interesting. So how did the researchers actually study this? Did they just show a bunch of pictures of people making faces to these AI systems and ask them to guess the emotion?
It's actually a bit more sophisticated than that. They use something called appraisal theory. It's the idea that emotions are not just like reactions. They're actually shaped by how we interpret things based on our own goals, beliefs, and, what we expect.
So it's not just what happens, but how we make sense of it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see why that would be super important for AI to get if it's going to really understand how we feel.
Yeah, for sure. The researchers actually used a really cool example to explain this. Imagine a high school student named Amy. She's applying to college. Her biggest dream is to go to this, specific state school. Now getting accepted or rejected, that's the event, right? But how she reacts emotionally depends on a lot more than that.
Right, maybe she didn't get in, but she also didn't really try that hard, so she's not that upset. Or maybe she did everything she could and still got rejected, and that would probably make her feel a lot worse.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where appraisal theory comes in. It's all about understanding those little details, how Amy sees the situation based on her goals, what she believes about herself, and what she expected would happen.
Okay, so how did they actually test this with AI? Did they create a virtual Amy and make her go through all these different college application scenarios?
Well, they did something pretty clever. They built a causal template. It's basically a map that shows how things are connected, like the outcomes, whether Amy got accepted or not, her appraisals, how she interprets those outcomes, her emotions, and even her facial expressions.
So this template is like a framework for analyzing how everything comes together to create a specific emotional response. It seems like they're really going deep to understand how emotions work, like they're taking it apart.
Right, and to really test this template, they needed lots of different scenarios, each with different outcomes, appraisals, and emotions.
But wouldn't it take forever to come up with all those different scenarios?
You'd think so, but here's where AI comes in. They use language models to generate tons of versions of Amy's story, like expanding it to include whether she wanted to go to a fancy private school versus a local college and how she felt about different outcomes.
Hold on. They used AI to create scenarios to test other AI on understanding human emotions. That's pretty meta, right?
It is. And it shows how AI is becoming a tool not just to solve problems, but to study itself, too.
This is already so interesting, and we haven't even gotten to the results. But before we get to those, can you remind us which AI systems they actually used for this study?
Yeah, so they tested three, Claude 3, GPT-4, and Gemini 1.5 Pro, all very cutting-edge foundation models. And to see how AI measured up against humans, they showed these scenarios to both human participants and the AI systems.
Okay, so it's like a human versus machine emotional intelligence battle. Let's get to the results. Did the AI figure out the secrets of human emotions?
The results were really impressive, actually. The AI systems did a really good job, surprisingly good, of matching up with human intuition. They could make accurate guesses about emotions, outcomes, and even Amy's appraisals based on what was in each scenario.
So they weren't just picking emotions randomly. They were really showing a true understanding of how the emotions worked in the situation.
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about this research. It suggests that AI is going beyond just recognizing patterns in data. It's starting to get the deeper, more subtle parts of human emotion.
You mentioned that the AI was able to infer things about the scenarios. Can you give me an example of what that actually means?
Sure. Let's think about Amy and her college applications again. In one scenario, the AI was told that Amy got into a really great private college, but she felt disappointed. Now, most people would kind of understand that this probably means that Amy really wanted to go to a different college, the one she didn't get into. And that's exactly what the AI figured out, too.
So even though the scenario didn't actually say that's what Amy wanted, the AI was able to figure it out based on how she was feeling and what happened. That's reading between the lines, understanding what wasn't being said.
Right, exactly. It shows a level of reasoning that goes beyond just the words that are there. The AI had to use a deeper understanding of what humans want and why they do things to get to that conclusion.
That's really impressive. But you also mentioned that in some cases, the AI did even better, even better than humans.
Yeah, there were a few times where the AI actually did a better job than the average human at, matching what most humans would say. For example, in one scenario, the AI was given a story about a character named Sarah who was in a cooking competition.
Okay, so what happened with Sarah in her cooking competition?
Well, the AI was given information about how Sarah did, what the judges said, and how she reacted emotionally. The AI and a group of humans were then asked to say if they thought Sarah had won or lost the competition.
And did the AI guess right? Did it know if Sarah had won her culinary adventure?
What's really interesting is that both the AI and the humans were given the exact same information, but the AI actually did a better job than most humans at guessing correctly whether Sarah won or lost.
Wow. So the AI was better at picking up on those little hints that told what happened in the competition.
Exactly. And that's what we mean when we say superhuman in this situation. It's not that the AI actually has emotions or is like magically better than us. It's just that it's seen so much data that it can see patterns and make connections that we might miss.
That's both really exciting and a little scary, to be honest. To think that AI might understand us better than we understand ourselves, it really makes you wonder what will happen next.
It really does, and that's why this research is so important. It's not just about making AI that can pass some emotional intelligence test. It's about figuring out what intelligence really is and how these changes in AI could change what it means to be human.
Totally. But let's not get too philosophical just yet. We talked about how the AI could figure out things like outcomes and even hidden preferences. But didn't you also mention that the researchers found ways to make the AI even better? I'm curious about that.
You're right, they did. They found that by asking the AI to do something called chain of thought reasoning, they could often make it more accurate, especially when it came to those harder inferences.
Chain of thought reasoning. That sounds pretty technical. Can you break that down for us?
Sure, it's basically a way of encouraging the AI to show its work, like explaining its thought process step by step. Instead of just giving a final answer, the AI has to say how it got there, what logical steps it took, and the connections it made along the way.
So it's like asking the AI to think out loud, right?
Yeah.
To say what's going on in its head.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the researchers found that this often helped the AI to understand things better and come up with answers that were closer to what humans would say, especially in those more complicated situations where you need to understand the why behind the emotions.
That's really interesting. It's kind of like how we teach critical thinking to humans. We tell them to break down big problems into smaller steps to explain how they're thinking and to see things from different points of view.
Exactly. And this research suggests that we might be able to do the same thing with AI. By encouraging AI to think in a more structured and human-like way, we might be able to unlock even more understanding and improve how it works.
So it's not just about giving AI more data. It's about teaching it to think better, to approach problems more like we do. It makes me think a lot about how AI is going to develop and how we can make sure these systems are not just powerful, but also work in a way that's good for humans and matches our values.
That's a really important point. As AI gets more and more advanced, we need to think about not just what it can do, but also the ethics of how we develop and use it.
For sure. With great power comes great responsibility, as they say. We need to be careful and think ahead about how we shape the future of AI so that it helps all of us. But before we get into that ethical discussion, I'm still really interested in hearing about how these AI systems actually came to their conclusions, like especially when they did better than humans.
Okay, so one really interesting example from the paper was about GPT-4V, which is a vision language model. It was given a scenario where a hiker named Sarah ran into some unexpected snowfall during her hike. The model could look at both the description of what happened and a picture of Sarah looking worried, and was able to figure out that she probably thought the snowfall was dangerous, even though it wasn't stated directly.
That's a great example. It shows how these models can use different kinds of information, like what they see and what they read, to get a better understanding of a situation and the emotions involved. It's like the AI could pick up on the subtle cues in Sarah's face and what was going on around her to reach a conclusion that made sense to humans.
Exactly. And that's what makes this research so exciting. It gives us a glimpse of a future where AI might not only understand what we say, but also how our faces look, how our bodies move, and all the subtle ways we express our emotions.
It's a future with a lot of possibilities, but also one that requires us to think carefully about the ethical implications. As AI gets better and better, we need to make sure these systems are developed and used in a way that puts people first and aligns with our values.
I absolutely agree. As we've talked about, AI is getting better and better at understanding and reacting to human emotions. And while this could lead to amazing things, it also means we need to have some serious conversations about what it means ethically to create machines that can read and maybe even manipulate human emotions.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
We could see AI revolutionize healthcare, education, and so many other fields by providing more personalized and emotionally intelligent support. But we also have to be very careful about how we use this power to make sure it's used for good, not for controlling or taking advantage of people. It's something we need to talk about and explore more.
Absolutely. As AI keeps changing, it's super important that everyone, like researchers, policymakers, and regular people, keep talking about what it means for us ethically and as a society. We need to have clear rules and safeguards to make sure AI's growing emotional intelligence is used responsibly and ethically, always putting human well-being and choice first.
So we're back. Before the break, we were talking about GPT-4V and how it analyzed Sarah the hiker's experience with that unexpected snowfall. And I'm really curious to hear about some other examples of what you call that superhuman performance.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's this other scenario where they tested how well AI could figure out what caused a certain emotion. They gave the AI and human participants a story about a character named David who was feeling anxious.
Okay, so what was making David so anxious? Like, was it a big presentation coming up or maybe a deadline he had to meet?
Well, they made the scenario kind of vague on purpose. It just said that David was anxious and described how it was affecting him physically, like, his heart was racing and he was sweating. And both the AI and the humans had to choose what they thought was the most likely reason for David's anxiety from a list of options.
Oh, so it was like a multiple choice question about what was behind his feelings.
Right.
So how did the AI do compared to the humans in this like emotional detective work?
It's pretty amazing, actually. The AI was able to pick the right answer, like the most likely cause of David's anxiety, more often than the average human. It seems like the AI was able to spot some patterns in the data that maybe humans missed, which led to a more accurate guess about why David was feeling that way.
Wow, that's really something. It's like the AI was able to connect the dots between how David was feeling physically, what was happening in the story, and things that usually make people anxious. It really shows how good these systems are getting at looking at complicated information and making subtle judgments.
Exactly. And even though this research is still pretty new, it opens up some really interesting possibilities for what AI might be able to do. Like, imagine AI-powered tools that could help doctors figure out what's causing their patient's anxiety or depression more accurately. They could use information like what the patient says, how they're acting, and even data about their body.
That would be incredible. It could mean that treatments and therapies become more personalized, which could really help so many people who are struggling with mental health. But of course, like with anything powerful, there are also risks and ethical things to think about. We need to be really careful about how we develop and use these AI systems and always make sure they're helping people and society as a whole.
You're absolutely right. As we've seen from this research, AI is becoming more and more skilled at understanding and reacting to human emotions. And while this creates some amazing opportunities for innovation and progress, we really need to have some serious conversations about what it means ethically to be creating machines that can read and maybe even influence how humans feel.
Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one side, we have the potential for AI to totally change healthcare, education, and all sorts of other things by offering support that's more tailored to each person and understands emotions better. But on the other side, we have to be really cautious about how we handle this power, making sure it's used for good and not to manipulate or take advantage of people. It's definitely something we need to discuss and explore a lot more.
For sure, as AI continues to evolve, it's crucial that everyone, from the researchers and people making policies to everyday people, is involved in an ongoing conversation about the ethics and societal impact of these advancements. We need to come up with clear guidelines and protections to make sure AI's growing emotional intelligence is always used responsibly and ethically, with human well-being and autonomy as the top priorities.
That's a really great point. I think today's conversation has really highlighted both the amazing potential of AI and the serious challenges that we need to face as it becomes more and more a part of our lives. It's clear that we're in uncharted territory and we have to move forward with both excitement and care. We need to embrace new ideas while always remembering that ethical considerations will shape how our relationship with these powerful technologies develops.
I completely agree. This research really underscores that we're at a crucial point in the development of AI. The decisions we make now will determine how it evolves and affects humanity for generations to come. It's a responsibility we all share, and we should approach it with a sense of wonder and a strong commitment to ensuring that AI becomes a positive force in the world.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. Thank you so much for being here today for this fascinating look into how AI is starting to understand human emotions better. It's been a really thought-provoking discussion, and I know our listeners will have plenty to think about as they navigate this world of intelligent machines that's changing so quickly. Until next time, keep asking questions, stay curious, and remember that the future of AI is something we all have a part in shaping.